Vincent Lee could hear the voice of God talking to him again. And this time, it was very clear God was warning him about the young man sitting beside him on the bus. Vincent believed that this man was an evil alien, and if Vincent did not kill him first, the man was going to kill him. He had to do it now. 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 So Vincent obeyed the voice. He pulled out a knife and he attacked the man sitting beside him. That man's name was McLean. He was 22 years old and he had never met Vincent Lee in his life. Vincent Lee was 40 at the time. He was born in China and he had moved to Canada in 2001. By the time he met him, Vincent had been hearing voices for years. He believed that the voices he heard were God. The voices would give him instructions and sometimes Vincent would follow them. For example, in 2005, Vincent was found wandering along a highway in Ontario, confused. When the police stopped him and asked him why, he told the police that he was following the sun. The voice had told him to follow the sun. Vincent was taken to hospital, but whatever was happening to him then did not end there. Over the next few years, he continued hearing voices and he became convinced that God had chosen him for a special purpose. He did a lot of traveling. Sometimes it was for work, but honestly, he gave up jobs so easily and it was aimless traveling, honestly. On July 28th, he got on a Greyhound bus in Edmonton, heading towards Winnipeg. But by the next evening, Vincent suddenly got off the bus in a small town called Erickson, Manitoba. He had luggage with him, but instead of finding somewhere to spend the night, he decided to spend the night on a bench at the station. The following morning, he was still there sitting up. Later that day, he got on another Greyhound bus number 1170. And sitting near the back of this bus was McLean. Tim was 22 years old and he was from Winnipeg. He worked with a traveling carnival, moving from place to place with the company. They toured across Canada. Tim had been working at a fair in Edmonton and now he was heading home to Winnipeg. His family described him as easygoing, friendly. He loved music. He loved traveling, spending time with people close to him. That day, Tim was traveling alone. He and Vincent had never met before. They had no connection. They were just two strangers on the same Greyhound bus. There were 37 passengers on board. At first, Vincent wasn't sitting beside Tim. He had taken a seat closer to the front of the bus, and he even spoke normally with another passenger. But during a scheduled stop, Vincent got off the bus for a little while. When he came back on, he walked towards the back of the bus. And this time, he sat down beside Tim. Tim smiled at Vincent and asked him how he was doing. It was just small, friendly, just a small, friendly interaction between two strangers who had never met before. Tim had his headphones on and eventually he rested his head against the window just to rest for a bit. For about half an hour, Vincent sat quietly beside him as the bus continued towards Winnipeg. But Vincent believed that the man sitting beside him was an evil alien. He later said that he heard the voice of God telling him that he had to kill Tim or die immediately. Then Vincent pulled out a large knife and he attacked Tim. He started stabbing Tim continuously, repeatedly. At first, the other passengers struggled to understand what was happening, but Tim fought back. Despite being badly injured, he managed to get into the aisle and he continued struggling with Vincent. Some of the passengers later said that they believed Tim's fight gave them a chance to escape from the bus. The driver parked the bus as quickly as he could and opened the doors, and the passengers all rushed outside. Within seconds, everybody had escaped that bus. Everyone except Tim and Vincent. A few of the men tried to go back onto the bus to help Tim, but Vincent chased them back out with the knife. The driver and two passengers managed to keep the bus door closed from the outside to trap Vincent inside. By this point, Tim had died, but Vincent continued attacking Tim's body. He decapitated him, then he held up the severed head for people outside to see it. He continued mutilating Tim's body, cutting off parts. At some point, he ate some parts of Tim's body. The passengers couldn't do anything. They were just waiting outside while they called the police. The police eventually got to the scene, but Vincent was still attacking Tim's body. Police surrounded the bus and they tried to negotiate with him. For hours, Vincent remained inside with Tim's body, sometimes pacing up and down the aisle. At one point, he was overheard saying, "Now I have to stay in this bus forever." At around 1:30 in the morning, Vincent finally tried to escape by breaking through a window. Officers were waiting for him. They used a taser, handcuffed him, and they took him into custody. By then, it had been roughly 5 hours since the police were first called to the attack. Vincent Lee was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. But when the case went to court, there was never really any question about whether Vincent had killed Tim or not. Vincent admitted that he had killed him. The question was whether he could be held legally responsible for what he had done. Two psychiatrists examined Vincent and they diagnosed him with schizophrenia. They said that during the attack, he was severely psychotic. He genuinely believed that Tim was an evil threat and that God had ordered him to kill him. And he believed that he was acting in self-defense. On March 5th, 2009, the judge found Vincent not criminally responsible because of mental disorder. The judge said that Vincent did not understand what he was doing was morally wrong. So instead of prison, he was sent to Selkirk Mental Health Center where he would receive psychiatric treatment and his condition would be reviewed regularly. Over the next few years, Vincent started improving. In 2010, he was allowed short walks around the hospital grounds accompanied by 2 members of staff. In 2011, he was allowed to spend up to a full day outside the locked ward with 1 staff member accompanying him. By 2012, Vincent was allowed to leave the hospital grounds for the first time. He could take supervised trips into the nearby town of Selkirk as long as he was accompanied by a staff member and a security officer. By 2013, those trips extended to places including Winnipeg and nearby beaches. He was also allowed to spend time on the hospital grounds without an escort. His doctors said that his medication was working very well. Vincent was no longer having hallucinations. He understood that he had schizophrenia. He understood that he needed to continue taking his medication. In 2014, Vincent was given even more freedom. He was allowed to leave the hospital by himself, take unescorted trips into the town of Selkirk. Those trips started at 30 minutes and they gradually increased to full days. He was also moved from the secure part of the hospital to an unlocked ward. In 2015, Vincent was allowed to make unescorted trips into Winnipeg. His doctors were now preparing for the possibility that he could eventually leave the hospital and live in the community by himself. In 2016, he was allowed to leave the hospital and live independently in the community. Although he was still monitored and subject to conditions, by then he had also legally changed his name. Vincent Lee was now Will Baker. And on February 10th, 2017, he was granted an absolute discharge. The board concluded that he no longer posed a significant threat to public safety. This meant he was completely free. No legal conditions, no compulsory monitoring, no requirement for anybody to make sure that he continued taking his medication. Less than 9 years after killing Tim McLean, Will Baker was a free man. Tim's partner gave birth to their son about 5 months after his death. Tim's mother fought his partner for custody of the child and she eventually won. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more stories like this, please don't forget to follow me. I tell these stories all the time on all my social media. See you in the next one.